Hello, hello. It's Business Partner 2.3 Communication Skills Lesson supporting teamwork. Do you work in a team or do you work all alone? Look at this quote here from Helen Keller, an American author and lecturer. Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much. So imagine, to make a car. Do you think you could make a car on your own? Or so many people are involved? And great ideas. You can have great ideas alone, but can you implement them on your own? Or do you think that with a big team you could do better? Well, this is what we are going to talk about today. But more than that, we are going to talk about dealing with people when working in teams. Learners are aware of different ways to support team colleagues and can use a range of phrases for giving and responding to advice. And this is what we are going to see in this lesson. In the beginning, we are going to talk about these questions here. Look at the questions. Think about different teams and groups you are or have been part of. What challenges do groups or teams have which can make them less effective? Because if we are going to talk about the success of working in teams sometimes is challenging. How can it be challenging and how to deal with that? So the idea is for you to bring me ideas connected to that. Can you remember situations in which you had trouble? Well, I remember a situation in which I worked with friends. We were friends together, but many differences arose. And it was very hard to deal with some differences. At least we ended up the situation as friends. But we could have lost some friends in that experience. Can you get prepared and bring some challenges that could make teams less effective? How useful and or problematic is it to have people in a group or team who are very different to each other, and why? Do you have ideas connected to that? I think that diversity is potentially an advantage because different people can bring different points of view and they can help innovation as well. But there's also a problem that different views and working styles can lead to conflicts. I have already had an experience with that. Different people having different ideas leading to serious problems among the group. And who do you prefer to work with? People who are similar to you or very different from you? It's up to you. You can say that you prefer people that are similar because you have lots of things in common and things to talk about. You can say that you prefer different people because you can learn and give to the team because of the differences. Well, there's then these videos here. Do you remember Matt? Matt and Stephanie. And then there's Dan and Paula. Matt has organized a conference call to plan how the team will work together to deliver online project management courses on time in Mexico. Well, they are releasing a course, an online project, but they are pressured by time. Watch the call and note down what each person sees as a priority or project success. What will be success for these different people? And I ask you now, what's the purpose of the conference call? I have already told you, but pay attention to that, right? It's here to plan how the team will work together to deliver online project management courses on time in Mexico. Who will be leading the call? Do you remember who was the boss here? Is it Paula because she's with the phone? Or is it Stephanie because she runs a subsidiary? Or is it Dan? If you remember lesson or unit 1, you will have a good guess who is in charge. And what type of project will they discuss? I have already told you. What is it? Did it pop up in your mind? And what do you need to listen for? Look, watch the call and note down what each person sees as a priority or project success. All right, they have a reason for the conference call. What is the reason? What is the priority for each of them? Right? Good. After we watch the videos, and you have access to the video because you have the book, right? So you watch the video before our online lesson, and we are going to talk about what you noted here. You are noting down their priorities. And we can watch the video during the live lesson, and we have these 2 questions. How well do you think Matt leads the meeting? Oops, I asked who would lead the call. It's answered here, right? And why do you say that he was well or not well and in his role as a leader of the meeting? And you give reasons. And how does Stephanie feel about working with Dan and why? Do you remember, Stephanie, do you remember that a team in the UK thought that she was kind of distant, impersonal, and maybe arrogant? Do you remember that? All right, let's see how is her situation with Dan. I'm not going to tell you what I think, but I'd like you to watch the video and tell me, or get prepared to tell me, how the call ends up, right? After that, we have number 4 here. I love this because this is again that kind of lesson in which we have 2 options, and you have to tell me which one do you think is the best option. Let's discuss what Matt should advise Stephanie to do at the beginning of the project. Do you think she should focus on working with Paula or with Dan? You should give reasons for your answers, and as a class we are going to decide which video to watch. Obviously you can watch both videos before the lesson as you have access to those videos. But let's see what they are about. In option A, this first video, advise Stephanie to work mainly with Paula. So Dan advises Stephanie to work mainly with Paula and the Mexico part of the project. Option B, there's advice for Stephanie to work mainly with Dan and the US part of the project. Why working with Paula could be more positive? Why working with Dan? Well, if you watched if you watch the first video, you will know why there's these, that she would think about working with Paula or Dan. And we are going to talk about this. But for option A, look here. Why does Matt advise Stephanie to work with Paula at the start of the project? So why working with Paula and the Mexico part of the project? How far does she agree or disagree? How far does Stephanie agrees with the idea of working with Paula and the Mexican team? What does Stephanie now think after working with Paula for some time? What does she think about Dan's first idea that quality is a priority? Oops, this is Dan's priority. Overall, how effective does Matt advise and support Stephanie as she's working with Paula and is aware of Dan's demands? And then there's option B, the other video that you can watch before the lesson as well. Why does Matt advise Stephanie to work with Dan? This is another option. They don't work, or only one would happen, right? But then Matt here advises Stephanie to work with Dan at the start of the project. There's a reason for that. He says that reason. What is that reason? How far does she agree or disagree with Matt about working with Dan? And what's the reason? What is Stephanie's experience of working with Dan on the project? So, is it going to be easy? Is it going to be hard? And overall, how effectively Dan advise and support Stephanie here in the second option? You should watch the video and take notes, because then we'll be able to talk about these differences and how successful Matt was, how successful Stephanie was in dealing with this project. All right? I really liked this series of videos because we learn a lot about this thing of working in a team. And Matt is learning here, Stephanie is learning here, Paula is doing her best, Dan is doing his best, especially in being a bit demanding, or, well, you are going to watch the video. After that, we should discuss, or students in a larger group should discuss in pairs, the questions and agree what you can learn from Matt and Stephanie's project team experiences. Look at these questions, they are wonderful. What advice did Matt give Stephanie in each video about working with Dan? Because in both circumstances she has to deal with them, even if she works with Paula. So you tell me, what is this advice, please? What this advice is? What choice did Stephanie make in each video about working with Dan? What happened as a result? Because in each video she has to talk to them, and what are the results? What the results are here? Tell me. What can we learn from these experiences about offering advice and support to colleagues in international teams? Matt is dealing with 3 different cultures. He's English, but he's with Stephanie, that is German, Paula, that's from Mexico, and Dan, that is from the United States. How does he balance all differences and how they are, their demands, and the necessity of the group and the project? Very nice, very nice. And I'd like you to bring these ideas in for us to talk about during the live lesson. All right? After that, we have number 5. As usual, we have the conclusions. conclusion section of the video. There's an expert talking about that. Compare what is said with your answers to 4C. This part here, because he's going to comment on these three aspects. Compare what is said with your answers. Note down the three main learning points about working in international teams. I think that these principles here aren't only important for international teams. People from different cultures here in Brazil, or even from the same place, we can use these strategies here to deal with different people. How far do you agree with these 3 points? And why do you agree or disagree? Would they work here in your place of work, in your company? Try to figure out an answer about that. Now, think again about a team or group you are or have been part of, and look at the questions and discuss your answers with your partner. How effective is the team or group, and why? Remember, what you tell me is going to be here, right? I'm not going to share. So if you don't have exactly a very successful group or team in terms of communication and leadership, don't worry about that. I'm not going to tell anyone. What advice and or support would help the team to be even more effective? What do you think is missing in your experience of work? And what advice or what could be an idea would you give yourself about how to support the team better? Wow! So you see, after watching these videos, do you think you could improve your kind of work, your experience of working with others? Imagine if we finish this lesson and you have such an insight. Wow, I could work differently, things would be better. Wow, I would really get happy with that. If you have something to improve in your own professional life, that would be great. That would be great. Okay, but before we go to 7, I'd like to think about giving advice. Do you think it's great when people come to you and try to give you advice, or does it annoy you? Hey, you should change this. Who are you to tell me that? Would you answer something like that? Or would you say, oh, thank you, please tell me, I'm eager to improve as a professional. I'm keen on learning from you. Is it easy to learn? Is it easy to listen to advice? Sometimes it's very hard. So you tell me whether you would really like it or not. Okay. In what ways we can give advice in such a manner that it sounds that you care for the person? Right? Because if you are giving advice, you are suggesting the person to do something differently or to go on a direction. It could be seen as if you were criticizing the person. But if you really care and you are giving advice, your expectation is that the person would like your ideas. So how can we sound to help people like our ideas. Let's think about while we learn or we review some functional language here, giving and responding to advice. We have these phrases for giving advice from the video. Match the beginnings of the phrases 1 to 7 with the endings A to G. I really like reading the sentences on the right before, because then we'll read one and we already know the options, right? So I'm going to read and let's do it. Talking to him. Better for you to just focus on Mexico. Be your number one priority. For you to work with Dan. Just try. Afraid to ask his advice where you need it. Be able to keep in touch with Dan yourself. Look, this one, be your number one priority. Look at this one. You need to be your number one priority. Well, it's common these days, right? That people are really focused on themselves. But it's not number 5 here, right? Why don't you pause the video, try to do this exercise, and after that you play again and you listen to the answers. Is that okay for you? So, pause the video, do the matching, and then we can talk after you finish, right? Let's see. Quality should be your number one priority. Nice, right? Why don't you just try? Maybe it would be better for you to just focus on Mexico. Have you tried talking to him? You need to be your number one priority. No, this is number 1, right? So you need to be able to keep in touch with them yourself. It sounds that they have trouble in their communication. Don't be afraid to ask his advice where you need it. I think it's important for you to work with Dan. Focus on Mexico, work with Dan. You tell me what is best for her, for Stephanie. But this is the matching and this is giving advice, right? Well, we are doing this and we are learning some aspect about English. When we have verbs like this, should, would, and some other verbs, modal verbs, we have an infinitive. If they are followed by a verb, they are followed by an infinitive, right? Sometimes we have infinitive with to plus infinitive. And sometimes we have a verb that is followed by another verb, but in the ing form. And that's what this exercise is about. Take a look. Quality should be your number one priority. Look at the words in bold in the phrases in exercise 7a. Which phrases for giving advice are followed by to plus infinitive? Do you agree that should be is followed by an infinitive, not to plus infinitive? Why don't you, what was the answer? Why don't you just try? Why don't you just try? It's an infinitive, right? You don't say, why don't you to try? Why don't you try? Maybe it could be better for you to focus on Mexico. Look, better to focus is letter A, to plus infinitive, right? If you say would be, it would be better to do something. Have you tried talking to him? So if you use the verb try, the verb that follows is in the ing form. 5. You need to be able to keep in touch with them. You need to. You already have to here. So, need is to plus infinitive. As we already have to here, I won't say to plus infinitive, but it is, right? To plus infinitive, because you already have to here. Don't be afraid to ask him his advice where you need it. Don't be afraid to ask. It's to plus infinitive, right? Afraid, better, to. So if you have these, you have to. I think it's important to work with them. So if you have an adjective, look, we have seen infinitive with to. I liked that. Interesting, right? Do you think it's interesting? I think it's interesting. And, well, now that we saw these phrases here, there are 5 phrases that are stronger or more direct in ways to give advice. And what are they? What are those 5 phrases? The idea is that sometimes with the intonation and the words that we use, we can be more polite, less polite, more direct, less direct, more imperative, less imperative. Because, for example, when a father or a mother gives advice, lots of time they sound imperative, like take your coat, take an umbrella, it's going to rain, right? Would you speak like that to a colleague at work? Would you say that in that way to your boss, to someone that works for you? How would you work? And what sentences are stronger or less strong in Portuguese? I always have that example, like offering thing or asking for something. If you go to the bakery and you say, give me 2 rows, give me 3 rows, please. It sounds not offensive, but it doesn't sound polite for them. But if you say, I'd like 3 rows, please, sounds much better. Well, if we are giving advice, we would like to be accepted, right? So pay attention to these. We have 5 sentences here that are stronger and more direct. Look, quality should be your number 1 priority. Should be. It's polite, I can't deny, but it's more direct than others. Why don't you? Why don't you just try? It's a bit direct. It is polite, but direct. Look at number 3 here. Maybe it would be better if you... No, sorry. Maybe it would be better for you to just focus on Mexico. Don't you agree that it's a bit more hypothetical? So it's indirect, not that strong, right? And 4, have you tried Have you tried talking to him? It's indirect as well, right? It's less direct and it's explorative. Have you tried? You need to be able to keep in touch with them yourself. You need to is direct, right? Direct and strong. Don't be afraid to ask his advice where you need it. Don't be, it's negative, but it's direct. I think it's important. I think it's important for you to work with them. You are saying what you think directly, right? Is it impolite? No, not at all. It's okay. I think it's nice. Who would you expect to give you strong advice? I said father and mother, right? But an expert on something. Do you think the person would, maybe you could possibly? Or would the person be more direct? A colleague, you work together every day. Would he be more direct or more indirect and cheio de dedos with you? Your boss, hey, please, I would like to ask you or suggest that you would do this. Or is he more direct? Your best friend. Well, I have different friends. I have one friend that is really direct. Também ao que você fez. Você tem que fazer tal coisa. He's like that. He wants me to be happy and successful. But sometimes it's a bit hard to talk to him. But I have other friends that would say, hey, look, I've tried this way and it happened to be very positive for me. They are more indirect, but I think that some people can be direct and very polite. Your mother. Strong advice. Yes. Someone you don't know very well. Do you think that someone that doesn't know you very well can be very direct giving strong advice? Would you be use strong advice being very direct to people that you barely know? Would you? Someone you've just met. Oh, so your name is Joaquin. Yes, oh, Shinky, you shouldn't do that way. Do you think this is normal here in Brazil? I'm not sure about that. Well, now we are going to work in pairs. Take turns to explain the problems below and give each other advice. I really like this kind of exercise. And we should respond using phrases from the box. That's a good idea. That's a great idea. Yes, maybe I should do that. That sounds like a good idea. Yes, but I don't think it could work. Okay, I'll think about it. The point is that we are going to say this and our colleagues are going to respond to that. Okay? And giving advice. So why don't you prepare a piece of advice for each of these situations? But imagine, I'm going to talk about, to give an example. I feel really tired these days. And then the other student is going to say, why don't you have a rest? That's a great idea, but I'm so busy. So you see, you don't have to agree with that. You can disagree, but let's everybody to try to be polite. Okay? Good. And then let's see the problems. I haven't taken any time off work in the last 6 months. How would you give advice to a person like that? And then you say, oh, please, there's a bank holiday, you could rest for 3 days, 4 days, right? And the other one is going to say, oh, that's a good idea. I'm worried that I might fail my driving test. Oh, why don't you get your car and start practicing in the streets? Yes, but I feel afraid of police officers stopping my car and uh, figuring out that I don't have a driving license. Imagine a situation like this. I don't know how to use Excel very well. Don't you? Ah, okay. What advice would you give? Buy a course, buy a book, practice every day for half hour, watch videos on the internet. What advice would you offer? I really have too much to do at work. Do you? Okay. So what advice would you give? Can you delegate to others? Can you share your responsibilities? Can you talk to the boss? What do you have to do? So that's the point. You're going to try to give advice based on those problems, and the person that has those problems or is pretending to have these problems, that person is going to react to the advice, agreeing or disagreeing politely. I liked that. I think it's a very good exercise. After that, we have these teachers' resources, these extra activities. They're very nice, very nice. It is about functional language, this functional language. And we have these difficult situations between colleagues and managers, and we should put their replies in the correct order to give the speaker some advice. Let's see the problems. She always interrupts me at meetings. Wow. Who? Your secretary, your wife, your friend, your colleague at the meeting? I think you should tell her it's unacceptable. And then we have some other situations. My colleague is very negative. He complains all the time. Him to stop it. Don't you tell why. Look, capital letters, so this is probably the first one, right? Try to do it. One woman in the office talks really loudly on the phone. I can't concentrate. Os incomodados que se mudem, problema seu. No! Let's try to find a solution. Give the person some advice. To block out, tried the noise, have you using headphones? And for my manager treats me like an idiot. I want to scream. Ah! So how would you give advice? How would you deal with that problem? Help your friend. For you, some relaxation classes, maybe it would be good to do. Can you put the sentences in the correct order? 2, 3, and 4. In this kind of situation, why don't you pause the video and try to do it? I'm not going to give you the answers. We are going to see together at the lesson, live lesson. I don't trust him. He's a terrible gossip. What is a gossip? Someone who talks about other people's lives. So if they are talking about others to you, they are probably going to talk about you to others. Do you like it? Do you do it? My boss sends me emails even when I'm on holiday. What should you do if you have that situation? Until you're back at work, to ignore them. Don't be afraid. I don't have enough time to do everything. Who does? Your boss to ask for help you need. Sounds like Master Yoda, right? And finally, we'll have these sentences together and we are going to read them aloud, trying to sound polite and caring while giving advice, okay? This is what we are going to do during the live lesson. Very nice exercise, by the way. Can you think about dialogues based on your conversations of this exercise? Don't worry, before the live lesson, we can think about that as homework. Writing short dialogues based on these situations here or the others here from the extra activities. To finish the lesson, we'll have exercise 10. And in exercise 10, we are looking at 3 people. They're working together on a project. We don't know exactly what that project is about, but they will find some trouble. Work in groups of 3 and read the situations on page 126 of the book. Take turns to ask for and give advice. And remember to respond to the advice you receive. So we have 3 situations. Imagine that we are working in trees, and one is going to say something, the other 2 are going to try to give advice, and the other one is going to agree and maybe pick one of the ideas. Think of another situation, real or invented, you could ask your colleagues advice on. Imagine that we bring real situations and we finish the lesson with real solutions for our real problems. Wow, I really like this book. Business Partner, wonderful, because we are growing as people, we are growing as professionals by studying English. When you have discussed all the situations, compare the best advice with another group in larger classes, of course, who preferred to use stronger advice structures. Do you think 1, 2, or the 3 situations demanded for strong advice? When and why? What situations? So let's take a look at page 126 and see what the situations are. Then we are going to ask for and give advice. So imagine that you are with that problem and you're going to ask for advice. Let's take a look at the situation. 2.3, 10a, your company is in the city center, a 20-minute bus ride from your home. Easy, right? However, it now plans to move to a new industrial estate over an hour away by car. There are always traffic jams getting there because there are no public transport links yet. Ask your father or mother what you should do. So you are with that problem. You have to ask that problem. Ask for advice. And the other student, or we are going to work together, the other one is going to try to give advice. Right? Why don't you buy a skateboard and then you can skateboard to work? Do you really think it's a good idea? But look, they are moving for 1 hour away by car. Terrible situation. After that, imagine that you are going to listen to the person complain about their situation and you are going to give advice. What advice would you give to this situation? You have moved to a new country to improve your language skills and job prospects. Wow, good, then? You had no idea how lonely you would feel after 6 months. that could happen. Your colleagues at work do not socialize outside the office, and you have found it hard to make friends any other way because your language skills are still quite basic. Hi, I like your country. I live in a white house. I like my house. Oh, come on, that's too basic, right? To have an interesting conversation about topics. So, should you give up and go back to your country? Talk to your flatmates about what to do. So, what advice would you give to someone with that problem? What would you do if you were in a circumstance like that? Well, and after that, we have this third situation here. You have recently been promoted at work. Oh, that's nice, right? The job involves managing staff which you have never done before. Oh, not very nice, right? Ask some senior managers for their top tips on how to manage staff, a lot of whom are older than you. Let's not worry about that in the classroom. Let's just talk about that, ask for advice, give advice on these situations. Look, we are looking at so many different situations. We have 3 here. We had 7 in this exercise. We have 4 other here. That's wonderful because we are growing as people, because we are thinking about advice to give and solutions for these problems. And it's very nice if we have already discussed solutions for possible problems. We grow as people and as professionals. And we are going to talk a lot during this lesson. So please, before the live lesson, let's try to do this exercise, to watch these videos and complete these ideas, to have your answers for these and for these, and after that have an idea for these situations here in the past. If we bring all these done before the lesson, it will be much easier for us to do these exercises that are, well, for me, they're really good exercises. Okay? So this is the end of the preparation. I hope you liked what is ahead for our lesson, and see you in the live lesson. Supporting teamwork. I hope you'll be more accessible to receive advice and more prepared or better prepared to give advice to your colleagues. See you then. Bye bye.